In this video, we'll go over notes for pressure and volume. To do your notes, you'll need some paper, you'll need a pen or pencil to do writing, and you'll need two markers. One marker should be a dark color, and one marker should be a light color. You can pause the video now and gather your materials. To begin, I'm going to write a title at the top of my paper. These notes are about pressure and volume. Using my pen, I'm going to draw 3 different containers. Each container is like a cylinder. Underneath each container, I'm drawing a shape that is a half circle. That's going to represent a pressure gauge. I'm going to continue to draw my other 2 containers, and then we'll add detail. It's okay if your containers are not perfectly the same size or perfectly spaced out. And underneath each of those containers that I've just drawn, I'm drawing another half circle pressure gauge. And again, it's okay if they're not the same size or even the same height. To show that this is a pressure gauge, I'm drawing a line at the end. So this area underneath that line is going to represent the point when pressure is too high. And I'm going to also draw in little dashed lines to show the different increments on the pressure gauge. So I have 3 containers and 3 pressure gauges. In the first container, the plunger of the container is way up at the top. So the plunger is fully, I don't really know how to say it. It's right at the top of the container, so it's not pushed down at all. In the second container, the plunger is pushed down a little bit, about halfway. And in the third container, the plunger is almost all the way at the bottom. To make this seem a little more clear, I'm now going to take my light colored marker and add some detail to my picture. First, I'm going to color in on the pressure gauge the area that would be showing that the pressure is too high. This would be a dangerous pressure for that container, because at this pressure way up here, the pressure could cause the container to break. I'm going to use my same light color to color in the plunger itself so it stands out from the container. The container is going to stay clear, so we're going to color in the plunger. And one more plunger to color. So I have all 3 containers set up, and the plungers are colored and the pressure gauges are set up as well. Inside each of these containers, I'm going to draw 10 particles. To represent the particles, I'm just using circles or dots, and I'm making sure that there are 10 of them. I'm going to try to space them out somewhat evenly so that they're dispersed around the container. There are 10 particles in that container. Ten particles in that container. And 10 particles in the third container. To show that these particles are moving around, I'm just drawing in some quick motion lines. It's okay if your motion lines overlap with the motion lines of another particle. So I'm going through and doing that to all 3 containers. In this third container, the motion lines are definitely going to hit other motion lines and maybe even some other particles. So let's draw in the pressure of each container. The pressure in the first container is low. I'm going to represent that by drawing in a pointer on the pressure gauge. So it's just a triangle drawn on that pressure gauge, and it's pointing to a low pressure down on this end. For the middle container, I'm drawing the pressure gauge with that triangle pointing kind of directly up to show that the pressure is in the middle of that pressure gauge. And for the last one, I'm going to put the triangle so it's just barely pointing outside of the danger zone. So the first container, this has low pressure. And the last container has high pressure. I'm switching back to my pen now so that I can write notes about these pictures that we've drawn. When the plunger is pushed down, the volume decreases. Then, since the particles have less space to move around, they start to collide more frequently. As they are colliding more frequently, this causes pressure to increase. I'm switching to my dark marker now to write notes, and I'm switching the color so that my eye is drawn to it when I look back at my notes while I'm studying. From these 3 statements I've written in black pen, we can write 2 different relationships. The first relationship is that as volume decreases, pressure increases. So we saw this relationship in the pictures up at the top here. Pressure decreased as we went through the 3 different containers, and we saw that pressure gradually increased. The opposite of this relationship is also true. As volume increases, pressure decreases. And we can look at our picture to see that as well. If we start on the right, as we move to the left, volume increases. So we've gone from a very small volume to a larger volume. While that was happening, the pressure gauge slowly turned back down to the left and pressure became low. We can also draw these two relationships as a graph. It's a simple graph. First, I'm going to use my dark colored marker just to draw kind of a big L to represent a graph. On the y-axis, this represents pressure. And on the x-axis, we will represent volume. I'll use my light colored marker now to draw in the line on the graph. When pressure is high, volume is low. If pressure is high, the volume is going to be low. If I consider that kind of a coordinate, pressure would be high and volume would be low. The point on my graph would be located up here. When pressure is low, volume is high. So I would put a dot over here if pressure was low and volume was high. We could go through and plot all the different points. However, our textbook/workbook shows us that the pressure and volume make this curved shape if we were to graph them. It's nice that we don't have to graph all of those points. This same graph is in your workbook. If I can find the page quickly, I'll know what page it's on. It's on page 62. So these diagrams that we've made and this graph are all on page 62. This actually sums up the notes that I wanted to cover for pressure and volume. Now you have a lab video to watch online. I'll write the assignment here, and you can find the video on the McGraw-Hill online curriculum. So you'll go on the online curriculum and watch Reload the Pressure, and then I would like you to complete the data and observations on page 64 in your workbook. If you aren't sure how to log into the McGraw-Hill online curriculum, there are instructions on class pages for today's block.